hope you have your tinfoil hat all made and cinched down tight over your ears. So take it away, Dave and Mickey.
Welcome to Shiny Side Out with Dave
and Mackie
on WZZR, broadcasting from Australia for Revolution Radio on www.revolution.radio. That's right, you heard it. That's the new URL. Where it's more than just radio, so jump into the chat if you can. We're in there right now. You can chat to us while we're on air. I think it's pretty cool. This is show number 301. Pause for Mackie in square brackets.
1 and 300.
It's on air, online, and on your smart device. So grab an app to listen anywhere or listen at home on a Grace tabletop digital radio. You know, Mackie, we've had that Grace tabletop digital radio in the promo since we started. And
I know, right?
I love... You know what? They still haven't sent me one. I love the way that phrase works. I really like the way that that's been written out. All right, if you missed Solaris' show today, just before ours, if you're only catching ours for the first time, welcome aboard. But you missed Solaris' show. If you did, then you missed Kelly Kelleher. They were talking about haunted healings and a whole bunch of other stuff. And, actually, it was pretty cool. She makes holy water. That's great. I love that. I think I needed some of that the other day. Look, it only cost $5.
It's too late for you, my friend. So,
that train has left the station.
So too late. You need some...
You don't know how true that is. The train's left the station. Look, it only costs $5 a month. Just a cup of coffee. That's all it cost. That's how much it is to get into the archives on Freedom Slips and check out Solaris' shows or any of the other host shows. Once you've got access to all of it. So I do that. It's only $5 a month and it's a cup of coffee and I'm in there and I can listen like a podcast, right? I can download the show and listen to my favorite hosts' shows on Revolution Radio. You can do it too. We acknowledge, that's Mickey and I, both independently acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land where we live, respectively. Mine is the Darkanyung and Mickey, the Daruk people. And we pay our respects to elders past, present, and future, and know that beneath the concrete, beneath the bitumen, beneath the buildings, is a land where stories have been told and repeated and learned for possibly 80,000 years. That's something. Think about where you live and how old those stories are and how they've been passed from one generation to the next. Mackie, 301, huh?
Yeah, it is. It's 6 years. Close enough to 6 years. We're almost finishing out another couple of months, and we'll be into our 7th year. And it's a lot. And I've just gone through our archive of show docs. Well, it's not on the website yet, but like I said, we're taking some time over the holidays. There's a lot of information. Altogether, I think. Let me just see. What's this? How many documents do we have here? I'll tell you how much we have here. 187 documents. We have 187 documents, and together that represents what's this? 90, about 100 meg worth of data, compressed. Now the reason it's only it's actually 187. It's only that many because we had the show cycles, right? We had shows running over more than one show. In fact, I don't think we had a single show that just was finished in one show. Maybe the first one, that was it, which is now lost forever.
That's
the first
right.
show, Dave.
Thank
299 shows ago. If anybody has taped it or recorded it in some fashion, I'd love to have it. Same goes with this show for Jim Mars. If anybody out there has it, I'll actually pay you for it if you can give me a copy.
So
yeah, Dave, look.
If it was like last year or the year before, and you've bought or purchased from Freedom Slips the archive of a host shows, and it happened to be ours, or one of the best ofs, hopefully we made it onto that, and we'd love to be able to get some of those interviews back. If you can find it, if you have it, let us know, because certainly we don't have it, and it was so awful to have lost some of those archives. So if we put in a call out to you, the listener, that'd be great.
Indeed, and that's exactly right. But again, 301 show. Well, after today, there'll be 301 shows. We have a YouTube channel as well. We have cracked 400, my friend. We have more than 400 subscribers. Woohoo! I can tell you how much money we make on that thing. It's ridiculous. No, look, we had 1.5 million minutes watched. We had 152,000 hits. 152,000. How much money, esteemed listenership, do you think that actually equates to? 152,000.
Don't
hits.
Call now.
I'll tell you. I'll tell you. A couple $100.
That's
okay.
right.
Not enough money to buy the paper and pay for the electricity that we use to bring you this show.
It doesn't. It doesn't even cover the website costs.
I know, right?
Oh, I know, right? Anyway,
it's all good.
If you're listening to this on YouTube, please just don't skip past the ads. We really need them, all right? Now, Mackie, how was your week?
Yeah, look, it was a good week. I traveled yet again. I went to Perth. Underrated city, in my opinion. It's nice. It's a really nice city. The weather was good. If you get a chance to just have a walk through the city, it's not that much of a city to walk through. I mean, it's not that big. It's very nice. It's got a few nice restaurants, cafes, pubs, and all that. So go ahead and spend some time in Perth. And but that should pretty much conclude my travel this year, Dave. I'm all traveled out. What about your week? How did you go?
Oh, it was hot. A couple of really hot days, and when you break 40 in the city, that's pretty hard.
That's That's hot.
It's not the world, a record, but it's only 5 degrees off the record. And in some places it was 41 degrees, so that's only 4 degrees off the record. That's hot. I mean, that's quite hot, and with the humidity being so high, it just takes it out of you. Now, I've been doing gardening today and yesterday with my machinery, which is like a 52cc brush cutter.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you, I've got 1.5 acres to cut, and I did maybe 1/8, and I was ruined, absolutely ruined, in the full sun, just sweating buckets, and it was really, really tough work. So it's not a sympathy bid, just saying, when you choose to live on a property that's larger than a regular house block, you have to pay the price, and then that's one of them. So it's pretty tough work, but in the heat, I'm wrecked. All I want to do is go to sleep, but it's not going to happen. Now, I stumbled upon 2 really odd news stories, Mackie, this week, and they were something else. One of them is in my genre anyway, but the other one blindsided me, and I couldn't believe it. I'll segue into it by saying that Joe Hockey, one of our ex-finance ministers here from Australia, was exiled to New York as a diplomat. If you can describe it in a more political way, I think that was it, right?
Yes.
And he's made a claim this week that President Trump would be re-elected today if the election was held today. That was when he was making a speech. And that's what he said. And I went, oh, okay, gee, hasn't he changed his tune? He's not he's not spruiking the party line anymore in his exile because he would be naturally negative towards a populist president, because that's what his party normally, that's the line his party normally takes, but that's not happening. So given that little G up that it appears to have come from one of our ex-politicians, I've uncovered a story, and it says the Trump administration reportedly instructs the CDC, that's the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, on its own version of, let's call it 7 dirty words. These are words that the Trump administration no longer wants to have in any report, paper, document, or anything at all that is issued or stored in the CDC. Now, I thought, wow, this is serious. What are they talking about? What's it called? Vaccinations. Maybe it's anti-vaccinations. No, that's not in there. Pandemics. No. They don't want the words fetus. You can't have the word fetus anymore, Mackie. That's outlawed.
No, that's a bad word. Yeah, I get that.
Oh, I know.
I mean, for years I've been petitioning, but finally, good Lord.
I had an A-frame, Mackie, and I was down there in the city, honk if you want to ban fetuses,
And I honked. I honked my heart out.
I heard you.
I did. So, keep going.
But it keeps going. Transgender. They don't want the words transgender in anything CDC.
Well, why would you need a word for something that doesn't exist, right? What?
Oh.
What?
Oh.
Right? Huh?
Yeah, you can get the hate mail for that one.
No.
And another example is science-based. Now, Mackie, you know why science?
Dude, but no more. Science, okay? Let's go burn down the observatory, okay? So this never happens again. All that science stuff and comets and crashing into the earth. It's science's fault. We have any problems today, okay? So anything science-based should just go out the door. Right? That's my opinion.
That's it. No
out
more.
The door.
No more of that.
Finish.
But it gets worse. It gets worse. Diversity.
Yeah, but hey. Nobody likes diversity. Hey, we all want to be the same. Yeah, thank you very much.
That's
same
right.
haircut, same shoes, same job. We all eat the same plastic clothes, food approximations we can get. It's okay. Diversity is bad. Okay?
It's clearly
University
bad.
is good. Yeah. Community is good. And your conformance, let's all conform. I think we should conform, Dave.
I'm conforming right now.
I'm conformed.
Yeah. Because I don't want to get in trouble for suggesting that we have entitlement. That's another word that's banned. Entitlement.
So he has to ban himself.
And you know how I said science-based? Well, there's also another one, evidence-based.
Yeah, but who needs that? I mean, science and evidence are our worst enemies. Okay, Hitler knew that. Hitler was very aware of this. Science and evidence. Who needs that? I'm seriously. Come on, what? Why would you even waste your time with that kind of stuff? We all know what's what. We know what's right and wrong, and if we don't know, then someone should tell us, and we should just listen to that, right? Well, thinking for yourself is where it all starts to go downhill. Okay, evidence, science. You want to base something on that, dude? Let's build all our houses on sand, quicksand. That's what I say.
That's a good idea.
Right?
I like that. Close proximity to water and all that. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, but I'm sure next year they'll ban the word proximity. So let me just run through these. So diversity, entitlement, evidence-based, fetus, science-based, transgender, and vulnerable. Vulnerable. So you can't say. I'm trying to put it in a sentence. So you can't say that the transgender fetus that was vulnerable to a science-based and it may be evidence-based also say like virus, which had a diversity of, you know, maybe 80-20, who knows, in the population, would then lead to an entitlement. Actually, that is like 5 words in that sentence you can use. I don't understand. Maybe that, like, I'm not going to put down anybody. I'm not a put downer, right? I'm just going to say, maybe those words were too big.
Oh, look, I'm an includifier as much as the next guy, okay? I includify people all the time. However, let's be very clear. Them words that you just learned me, them is some big words, and 2 of them words have them dashes, they're hyphenated, okay? So that makes it pretty hard. And fetus is spelled wrong anyway. It should be Phoe, right? Everyone knows that. Fetus. No, look, it is interesting. To be serious for a second, that these words should be stricken from any future documents. This is, you know, future documents, and this is specifically for the fiscal year budget of 2019. So I mean, clearly, there is an agenda here that is being followed, and I'm not saying it's necessarily Trump driven, but normally it's the bureaucracy or the machine that drives it. But nonetheless, let's be that as it may. Science-based, evidence-based. So it's because, yeah. Well, we can't argue with that. So I don't want to hear about it anymore. If I can't argue with it, I don't want to hear it. Diversity and transgender. Well, I don't agree with it. It shouldn't exist. So I don't want to hear about that either. And if you're vulnerable, that's your problem. And the most vulnerable, of course, the fetus is. Well, that's, you know, let the whole word gone. The whole population segment that's a fetus. I don't want to hear about them. Okay,
Becky, they don't vote for 18 years. Don't worry about them.
So how am I interested in those guys, right? And then entitlement. There goes some. Now, the entitled classes, especially in America, are quite large. So entitlement here refers, of course, to people that feel entitled to pensions and so forth, you know, and then veterans checks and all these good things that are necessary for a society to exist. And you know, and there's a sense in America that I feel when I travel there that people don't like entitlement. People like hard work, which is a good thing. There's nothing wrong with that. But some people are just better off than others, and some people are just worse off, and they can work as hard. I mean, some people work 3, 4, 5 jobs just to pay the bills. You can't tell me they're not working hard. They're not slackers. These people aren't slackers. They just were dealt a raw deal. And I think a society, a functioning society, a civilization, if you will, has the responsibility, the social responsibility. I'm not a socialist per se, but we have a social responsibility to each other. Ever since we started living in cities, we signed a certain social contract. And if you look at the Bible and other religious texts, you will see that social contract. You shouldn't steal. You shouldn't covet your neighbor's wife. You shouldn't lie. In fact, that's not true. That's not what it says. What it says is you should not bear false witness, which means you shouldn't lie in court. So it doesn't say. So I mean, any God out there is smart enough to know that not lying is impossible. Everybody lies every day about something. Okay, but it's bearing the false witness that gets you.
I caught a fish that was this big.
Oh man! If only I could see your hands.
But it got away. Mine
was bigger.
Yeah, now it's got to be bigger. Yeah.
Mine was a whale fish.
Whale fish.
But look, to be clear though, to take a word away is the first step of making the move to removing that abstract. It's an abstraction, okay? The abstract term, the entire association that you have. If you hear entitlement, diversity, evidence-based, science-based, you have got certain associations in your mind that go with that. It's just how it works. It's how we work. We spoke about language before. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, again, you know, the map is not the territory. It's one of my favorite phrases. The word is not the... It's a great phrase, you know. I can't claim it, but the point is, it actually goes to the existentialists. But the point is that these words have certain meanings associated with them that are immediately triggered when you hear them. So obviously, what we're trying to do here is to get rid of those triggers. So if an official document comes along and says something about something, then you know you will no longer hear anything about evidence or science-based, you know, and you will no longer hear things like transgender mentioned. Now, the one thing that puzzles me, I can understand all of them, like being an issue. I get that, right? For some people. The one thing, Dave, that puzzles me is the word fetus. I don't get it. Everything else I go, okay, I understand why you would have a beef with it if you've got a certain point of view, understand, and you want to simplify people's vocabulary, but this I don't.
It's the CDC. So
that's the thing.
This is the trouble I have with it.
I know.
The CDC, the Center for Disease Control, will have to, at some point, issue a report or a release or something to do with a new virus that has become apparent. It's boiled to the top. It's now the thing that we've got to worry about. And in some of their research, no doubt, they're going to have discovered that not only human, alive, living adults are susceptible to the virus, I suppose, in their report. They're going to have a vector diagram a diagram displaying vectors and age groups where people are more susceptible. So, the healthy people are usually the better off. But if it's an airborne cumulative virus, which doesn't exist yet, but I'm sure they're working on it now that I've said it, that the more you exercise, the more you breathe in, the more virus you get. I don't know. But usually it's the elderly, the weak, the sick, and the young. And viruses can infect an unborn fetus. So, an unborn person, is that where they... was the word just confusing to the reader? Oh, I don't know what fetus... I'm going to pretend that I know what it is. Yeah, unborn, whatever they are. Oh, yeah, one of those. But, Meki, this is the thing. They're suggesting, in the same article, that grants have reduced to, and not favourably for, anything that had the word climate change in the entire application. So, it seems as though...
He's going to pull all funding for all of that, you know that, right? All funding is going to go.
Yeah, well, that's true. But what the article is talking about, that if you were to include these words in your application, you are unlikely to get it, your grant. And I'm just worried that, well, if you start to extract the teeth from the CDC, it becomes purely, I suppose, even less than an advisory committee, and it'll have to pull back on its true task. If you start to make it toothless, it can't do anything. Does that make sense? I hope I'm making sense. And that's the worry. It's the same thing here, Meki, when the recent government change meant that they started to delete all government departments and government funding for anything with climate change in it. In the title or in the paper or in the reason for its existence. Once you've done that, if you start to disarm all of the people who are against you, then what is it that you're trying to achieve and need those removed?
Well, that's it, right?
All right. So that's the way I think. I can't help it. But I'm thinking that what they're trying to do is disarm them so they can do something and make it go under the radar.
Yeah, look, I agree. It's something we have to keep that one. We have to watch it, see what happens there. The change to language is always. I mean, that's just, look. And I don't know. I'm not drawing a parallel here between anyone, but this is what happened when Hitler came to power as well. Certain words were no longer used, and other words took on new meanings, and other words were favored over other words. And nobody in Germany would be called a leader anymore, right? Führer, which is what Hitler's title was. But in America, I work for an American company, we're all leaders. Everybody is a leader of this, even if it's just a call. Are you the leader on the call? I mean, that's it's
right.
It's straight out of the Nazi handbook of phraseology, which survived, interestingly, in America. Didn't survive in Germany at all. But that's neither here nor there.
But
yeah, look, we have.
Isn't it Orwellian?
Oh,
It
completely.
seems to me.
No, it's completely.
Yeah.
No, it's completely Orwellian because we now have decided that certain words are no longer going to be used. That's completely Orwellian. It's I mean, it's incredible, in fact, that someone would actually do that.
The
if they were
dictionary
fans,
was getting too thick, Mickey. We have to start deleting something.
Save the trees. That's what this is about. It's about saving the trees, right?
You can't use the word save or trees. So it's about saving the fetuses, Mickey. No, you can't use it.
It's about saving the fetuses. All of them. If we don't, we're in trouble. But Dave, you had another piece of news. Then actually, I found a piece of news as well, which I just pinged you. But what was the other piece that you found?
Well, in December 16th this year, 2 Navy men reported an object that accelerated like nothing ever seen, and that's their quote. And a former Navy pilot says he was pretty weirded out by an unexplained episode over the Pacific. His story has captured the attention of a Pentagon program investigating UFOs. Wow, you mean the Pentagon is still investigating UFOs? Is that what they're trying to convince us here? That's what was it? Blink 182 guy.
I can't remember.
Who's just put out some. He's just started to uncover some things, and maybe this is their press release to say that, you know what, hey, we're cool too. We're putting stories out. I know that guy is that popular guy that everyone's following now, but you know what, we're going to release something. And basically it just says there was an incident where an object flew away from them at high speed. Basically, they've got a little bit of capture here of some radar image from the pilot's view, which is pretty cool. And it said it sort of looks like frothy waves and foam, where like the water was boiling, but that's what it looked like before it left. It's really interesting. So I'm going to put that in the chat room. It's sort of, I get harassed by some friends of mine who don't really believe in anything at all. No UFOs, nothing. They're in I think they just don't want to know.
So hang on a second, Dave.
Yep.
1 second before you go, and you said they don't believe in UFOs. Now, let's be very clear here that unidentified flying objects are a reality. So you don't have to believe in them. They exist. What they are, I'm not saying here, could be anything. But the point is, and I want everybody to listen very carefully out there. You cannot deny the existence of unidentified exist. They have been documented. There are reports on it. We're not saying they're this or they're that, but they exist. And when I say unidentified, meaning they display characteristics that completely prevent us from identifying them. Their flight patterns, their accelerations, their shape, and many other characteristics that they display. Right? They completely elude identification. So Dave, your friends don't have to believe in it. You can't argue it. You know what I mean?
Oh, I agree with you, and that's what's really weird, is that they don't want to have to acknowledge it.
Right.
The resistance is theirs.
Yes.
And it's that they don't want to have to believe it. They're happy with their life the way everything is. That little triangle I always mention of workshops home. They don't want that to change, and they think that as long as they keep telling me that I'm a silly fool for believing any of this stuff, which I don't believe I am, because I've seen things that match what these pilots have seen and all the other people. There's mountains. There's a mountain bigger than the largest mountain on the planet, which happens to be Hawaii, if you didn't know. That is proof that there's something that exists. Whatever it is, I'm not debating it. But to say that something to like Mickey said, to disagree that an unidentified object exists is preposterous. It doesn't make any sense. It counters your own argument. Because it's unidentified. No one knows what it is. But there it is.
That's it.
There's evidence saying that there's something there, but we don't know what it is. And you can't deny that exists. But still, yet, they don't want to know. And I still find that perplexing because, I'm on a mission to learn everything. I want to know everything. I want to have all the answers to all the questions I've ever dreamt of.
That's what I would like.
Yeah. And I don't know how it is to wake up in the morning and put the blinkers on and go to work and come home and not have anything else. I don't know what that is. Now, I hope, Meki, that's a great segue that I'm going to throw to you now.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. And it is, in fact. This is news that came through just today. You should have got it in the States. So any listeners or the chat, if you heard about it, I'll quickly put the link in the chat room. But essentially, the Pentagon has admitted that they ran a secret multi-million-dollar UFO program. Okay, only a small number of officials were aware of the program, apparently, which began in 2007 and was reportedly closed in 2012. The New York Times says documents from the operation describe strange speeding aircraft and hovering objects. But scientists were doubtful, stressing that unexplained happenings were not necessarily proof of alien life. Now, on that, the CIA actually released 13 million pages of declassified documents. That doesn't mean they're not redacted. That just means you can look at a whole bunch of black on a page. Now, the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, which is this program, was the brainchild of Harry Reid, a retired Democratic senator who was the Senate Majority Leader at the time. And he told the New York Times, "I'm not embarrassed or ashamed or sorry I got this thing going. I've done something that no one has done before." Well, I don't know about that either. Now, it apparently cost $20 million, and the official funding ended in 2012, right? So, some people believe that program was set up to monitor Russia and China to see if they've got any, strange or exotic propulsion systems. Sure enough, but again, to Dave's point earlier, which is fortuitous, I think, it's not really a matter of wanting to believe in UFOs or not. UFOs exist, unidentified flying objects. The problem is that in the public's mind, the term UFO has become synonymous with alien spacecraft, right? If it is an alien spacecraft, I don't know. Is it possible? In my opinion, certainly. Is it possible that it's an inner Earth craft? Yes. Is it possible it's a space or a dimensional traveling machine? Yes. Yes. Is it possible it's a time traveling machine? Yes, it is, because I don't know. But there it is, unidentified. Don't know what it is. But don't make the unintended leap that a UFO is an alien spaceship. Okay, that's not what it means. It means unidentified flying object. And sometimes they're submerged. They swim, right? Or they're landed. Sometimes they're, unidentified, stationary objects as well. They don't always fly. But yeah, so it's interesting. I do want to have a look at these documents myself. I don't know when I get the time to do that, Dave, but it certainly is very interesting that, this is 2007 through to 2012. Project, for example, Blue Book and Project Majestic would have predated this particular program by decades. Okay, so clearly they're not owning up. They're not owning up to those things, which is interesting. So I want to have a look more closely, and we'll bring you an update. But the New York Times article looks very well researched. I'm going to have a read of that as well. So yeah, so that's what that is. Now, which is a very good segue into what we want to talk to you about today. Just very quickly, last week we spent 3 hours with Solaris, which was great, and we had a bit of a reminiscent show. I think we talked about life, universe, and everything, right? and the answer was 42. Yes, that's correct. But we had a really good look back, and we discussed both Solaris's views, our views, the show, and we talked a little bit about what we had done, where we had come from. I hope you had a chance to listen to us last week. It's available on YouTube, of course, or in the archives for Freedom Slips if you're a subscriber. By the way, if you are not, you should become one. For $5, you get access to all of the station's hosts, which is pretty brilliant. Now, we want to talk to you guys about the hypothesis, because there's only one reason I really sign up for this show, apart from being a lot of fun. It's the hypothesis. Now, Dave and I met 17 years ago, maybe I want to say now 18, close to 18 years now, and and we talked, on and off this net. But by that time, I had already been researching all of this stuff since, well, I was 8. So for probably 30 years prior to meeting Dave. Well, actually, no, I call it 20, 25 years. Anyway, the point is that something was forming in my mind. And similarly for Dave as well, where you go, something is not quite right. Things don't seem to be hanging together as we think they should. And movies like The Matrix, I felt, or The 13th Floor, and there's a whole raft of other movies. They live in books as well, of course, that hook into this. So where art is sort of trying to deal with these things that people are feeling. There's this discontinuity that we feel is happening all around us. It doesn't, things don't feel right. The way Morpheus put it in The Matrix, the splinter in your mind, the splinter that won't go away, the nagging feeling that things aren't as they should be, or as you remember them even, some dim racial or pre-life memory, I don't know. So, you look at things, and I came to this from ancient civilizations, right? I was fascinated by the whole Atlantis mystery and then the Bermuda Triangle and so forth. So I came to this via Charles Berlitz and Eric Van Daniken. That was my path. And Dave, of course, being experienced, so he came from a very different path, but I'll let him talk about that. Nonetheless, and this is what we found as well with a lot of the researchers that we've interviewed, not just research, but just our general guests. Everybody starts in a certain point, at a certain spot, and they could be very different from each other, those spots. And it doesn't matter, it seems, because most of us end on very similar trajectories. That we end up on very similar paths, and that goes to show that these mysteries, and this is the point of the show, of all the shows, are connected. These mysteries are all joined, and you can't disregard them, right? The old adage, divide and conquer, applies here as well. What the official line is that none of this is connected, and these are just, odd anomalies as far as they're acknowledged, and then mostly on the fringe, and don't even bother looking at them. And if you do look at them, just look at them individually and in isolation, which is the worst thing that you could possibly do. You must look at them in totality. Right, and we've discussed this at length as well. We even have gone as far as divorcing our own psyche and mind and soul. We've split them apart. We say, okay, there's the rational mind over here, science that's over here, and then you've got the irrational mind or religion and feelings, and they're over here, and they're completely unrelated. So you can never bring the two together. You can't compare them. Now, the problem, of course, is with that approach, which is now, I want to say, 250 years old, that quantum physics completely stood it on its head, because none of the findings, well, that's actually overstating it, most of the findings in quantum mechanics are completely counterintuitive. They don't make any sense when you look at the universe from a purely mechanistic point of view. None. They make no sense. Zero. We've spoken about that at length. But we made the decision that we can no longer have the spiritual together with the rational, or the scientific, if you will, right? That our minds and the world of supernatural belief systems and paranormal is something that the rational mind cannot entertain seriously, because then you're not a serious person. And if you're not a serious person, you can't be part of the establishment. If you're not part of the establishment, you can't be published. If you're not published, nobody wants to know anything about you anyway. Okay, that's where we're at. Yeah, we've given complete power to the rationalization of everything. The unfortunate problem here is this, though. This is the unfortunate problem. We are who we are. We are not toasters or coffee machines, okay, that operate the same way every time. Okay, we are human beings, and we live in a world that is connected biologically, chemically, right, spiritually. It's how it is. A lot of people will probably go, oh, spiritually, he's a bit of a nutter, isn't he? Well, it's true. It's true. We have very strong spiritual urges and needs. We need to make sense of the world. And for some people, that means we have to believe in a supreme deity, or we are animists, and we believe that everything is endowed with a life force, or whatever the case may be. It doesn't matter, but we have this strong need. And I think that's born out of the fact that we are spiritual creatures. We're not just flesh and blood robots. We're not just bones. and meat and organs, okay, and electric current in our brain, I think we are more than that. Because I reckon we could build a person with all those ingredients. And in fact, if you talk about all the ingredients, Dave, that we are, like, however much you weigh, let's say you weigh 80 kilos. So if I put 80 kilos of blood and bone and brain and organs into a big jar, I don't have a human being, do I? No, I have like a big jar full of hamburger meat. Goop. That's right. Right? Oh, hot dog, quickly. Off to the hot dog factory. So that's really the crux here. That something has given us a spark in this universe that sets us apart from what we know. Something that we think sets us apart. But life in itself is mysterious as well, right? I mean, life, in its simplest form is mysterious. I mean, we're just a very complex, expression of life, but no more complex than a whale or a dolphin, for instance. So yet we see ourselves standing outside of that. Human beings see themselves standing outside of this circle of life. Again, a complete fallacy, because we're very much in it. And whenever you get sick, you know just how much you're in it, okay? Because the smallest creatures can undo us, viruses, bacteria, and so forth. So the problem that we're facing is that we've completely discounted, when I say we, I'm talking Western civilization here mostly, we have completely discounted the spiritual component of our existence as something worthy of study or worthy to understand deeper than just having it. But we are very interested in, how many atoms are in a sugar cube and things like that, right? Having said all of that, yet again, quantum mechanics brings it all together. Oh, Mackie, that's overstating it. No, it's not. It's not. I'll tell you why. Again, this is probably the single most abused experiment for Dave and I of them all. The double slit experiment. I know, like I said last time, and like I say every time when I mention it, I'll get a lot of hate from purists here. The double slit experiment essentially is an electron being shot at a plate with two slits and a photosensitive screen in the back. So that's really the experimental setup. You shoot the electrons through it, boom, 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 as many as you want. You get an interference pattern, right? Obviously, because they hit each other and that's what you would expect, interference pattern. Cool, all right. Now, what would happen if we shoot only one electron through this? Which slit would it go to? That was really the question people asked. So they kept shooting it. Okay, and it goes through this slit or that slit, or it goes through neither because it hits the screen or whatever it might be, right? And okay, that we expected that. That makes perfect sense, right? Okay, it's an electron. It chooses to go, or it doesn't. It goes through either left or right, or it doesn't go because it hits the screen. Right, tick. Then we turned off the measurement device. And the electron did something astounding. Now, I'm talking about a single electron here. Not a whole bunch of electrons that go through this together, which would explain what happened.
Not like you're firing it with a shotgun.
No, correct. Just one shot at a time. Boom, boom, boom. So what this one electron would do, it would go through the left slit, it would go through the right slit, it would go through neither, and it would interfere with itself on the way through. Which, rather than giving you two clear lines at the end, of impact, as it were, you now have again an interference pattern, but you get the interference pattern with just the one electron going through it, just the one electron. So what's happening here? What's happening here? To this day, nobody really knows what's happening here. Right? People have advanced some theories, but none of them hold water, and we don't really know what happens or why it happens. It's a very mysterious thing. Does the electron know that we're looking at it? And why would it matter to the electron that we're looking at it? Who cares? I mean, why would the electron care if we're looking at it? It doesn't matter. But clearly, something happens when it's measured. So that's point number one. Point number two, even more mysterious, which is quantum entanglement, or what Einstein called spooky action at a distance. So what does that mean? It means that no matter what you do to a thing, a particle, like usually it's the spin state. If you change it in one particle, in the entangled particle, you will find the spin state, or whatever you're doing to it, is changed exactly at the same moment as the original particle. So, doing something to one particle, the same happens to the other particle, not with the lapse of time, but instantaneously. Which, of course, goes against everything that we know about space and time. That's impossible. There is no such thing as instantaneous, and no matter what the distance. Now, clearly, we don't understand how the universe is constructed, obviously, because if we did, then we could explain it. We can't, therefore we don't. And it's also clear to me that that something happens in higher dimensional spaces. And I like to think about Flatland here, which I just recently reread, Dave.
Really?
It's
Awesome.
it's really cool. But the point is, sorry, let me just, I'll talk about Flatland in a second. The point is that if you had the two-dimensional existence, you would not be aware of three dimensions. And if something moved in the third dimension, it would be completely incomprehensible to you. You would see the effects in your two dimensions, but you couldn't understand what happened. Same for us. We, for all intents and purposes, we occupy four dimensions, which is the spatial dimensions of three, and then you got the duration, which is time, like the duration dimension, if you want to call it that. But we need that duration dimension, otherwise nothing happens. So if something happens in the fifth or sixth or seventh dimension of this construct, we would not be able to perceive of it unless it interferes with our four-dimensional construct, because we can't. We're not constructed that way, right? We simply cannot conceive of it. But there are a lot of phenomena, I believe, out there where this is exactly what's happening. Okay, just strange happenings, people disappearing, things disappearing and reappearing. People, instantaneous combustion. If you might have heard of that, people that incinerate instantaneously. And even UFO phenomena, things blinking in and out of existence, right? There's a raft of things that make absolutely no sense in our universe, four dimensions, but would make more sense if we counted the fifth, sixth, or seventh dimension, even higher dimensions, spatial dimensions, and even time dimensions, if you want to call them that, duration dimensions. And maybe dimensions of a nature we can't fathom at all because we're simply not equipped to do so. So these two examples, and there are many more examples of recent scientific discoveries, show you that we don't know the universe as we do. And our science has come to a point where we go, look, I don't know. I don't know if we can go any further with the tools that we have. Because we're so fixated on the scientific method, and empirical science, and you have to be able to, repeat everything. You have to chop it up and, weigh it, and you have to be able to chop it up the same way the next time and weigh it, and get the same result again and again and again. Everything has to be peer reviewed, because nothing is true or real until it's peer reviewed. You know that, Dave, right? If it's not peer reviewed, it doesn't exist, which is insane. It is actually insane. But be that as it may, we have created an industry here. So Dave, look, that's what I wanted to say quickly about about the intent of the shiny side out. So this was my intent for why I'm doing this. I wanted to link things and make people aware that we have been led away from a true seeker's path, which it takes into consideration everything, not just the accepted.
I want to say that the seeker's path is becoming ever more difficult. I was having a discussion. I want to throw to this at the end after the break, because we're almost at the break now. But I was having a discussion with my friends last night, and we had a street party. And I'll tell you, the Christmas street parties where I live are great, and more fun to us. We're lucky we live in a cul-de-sac. The French should come up with that. We should come up with a word for cul-de-sac, because they don't have one. That's a Bushism. Anyway, so we were talking about it, and I came to even more realisms, to more realizations, and that was that I don't know how, Meki, if we were born today, I don't know how we'd be able to do what we're doing. How our mindset wouldn't be where it is today. It wouldn't be, because the tailoring of information towards people to make them feel comfortable about themselves is on the rise. It's the thing that the marketing people and the algorithms and Facebook and the way that people connect to each other. That's what's driving that at the moment. So if we'd been led down that path, then we wouldn't have this inquisitive mind. We wouldn't have the reason, the drive, the intuition, I suppose, to question. Because that right now is being vacuumed away from all of the Gen X's and the Gen Y's for that matter. And if you're lucky, it's not happening to you. Because tailoring news and information to you in your feed, for instance, on Facebook, which is something you've liked before, not too controversial, can't have that. So what we're going to do is just tailor it just for you, to make you happy. So when you wake up in the morning and go, oh, isn't that's cute. That thing is cute. Oh, look at that. Oh, I'd like one of those. And if that becomes your only way of thinking, because you're no longer shocked and surprised by things, that changes who you are. And of course, once you're in that mold, they can now sell you something at a price just for you. It might be more than they'd sell it to someone else for, or if you're the kind of person who'd like to look around, they'll just go in with a low price straight away. Think about how that affects you. Don't forget, look, we're just at the midway of the show. Have a little donate in the middle, and we'll see you on the other side of a short station break.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
There is no denying the world is awakening. We see it in the global uprisings and demonstrations of the people around the planet and the new way of thinking and living that is arising naturally within each one of us and our communities. I have been a major player in this global shift and movement for over 20 years and have helped tens of thousands of people around the world change their lives and find their voice in order to help create the paradigm change we so desperately need. Join me here at Revolution Radio on The Just Bernard Show every Tuesday at noon Eastern Time for 2 hours of powerful interviews and discussion with some of the most influential visionaries of consciousness, alternative media, and suppressed knowledge. We promise to reveal the real matrix and empower your human experience.
In breaking news, a visiting Syrian diplomat reported today that their population is evolving rapidly and advancing into a fifth-dimensional consciousness. They are seeking peace with all cosmic cultures, which may mean that the Earth will be asked to join the prestigious Galactic Federation of Light Alliances. Please join Debbie West and Michael Hathaway on Lost Knowledge, Saturdays, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in Studio A, for the latest breaking news on the Star Visitors' peaceful contact and the ongoing project of cleansing the Earth.
Who are you? I am the architect. I created the Matrix. I've been waiting for you.
Why am I here?
You are the eventuality of an anomaly which, despite my sincerest efforts, I have been unable to eliminate from what is otherwise a harmony of mathematical precision, which has led you inexorably here.
You haven't answered my question.
The Matrix is older than you know, as you are undoubtedly gathering the anomaly is systemic. creating fluctuations in even the most simplistic equation.
Choice. The problem is choice.
Right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. Be here Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Time for Private Eye Matrix Revealed with Monique Lassard.
Hello, this is Maggie Rose McGrath of The Concord Show.
And co-host Marine Corps Map, coming to you on Monday and Tuesdays in Studio A, noon to 2 Eastern.
And Studio B on Wednesday nights, 10 p.m. to 12 a.m. Eastern, with educational, instructional, information, and situational updates, often with wonderful guests on the current landscape in the U.S. and overseas.
This is a go. Go.
We are with you, side to side, and back to back.
Please join us on Monday through Wednesdays.
As well as other hosts and guests here on Revolution Radio. Radio.
We're not gonna take it anymore. That's right, we're not gonna take it anymore. We said we're not gonna take it anymore. That's right, we're not gonna take it anymore.
I'm Reverend Medium Tracy Lockwood, and I'd like to invite you to join me as I discuss life from a medium's perspective. I'll be talking about insights that I've gained through readings, with topics like your guides, angels, animal communication, past lives, our transition, and the afterlife. We'll take a deeper look at the metaphysical meanings of symbols and totems, and I'll give you some practical exercises to help you develop your own natural psychic ability. Join me on From a Medium's Perspective.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Hello and welcome back to Dave and Mackie's Shiny Side Out, show number 301, 1, and 300. You can get yourself some great merchandise from the station's website, buy a CD of your favorite host's shows for a previous season, an EMP-proof thumb drive with survival documents, or a 75k seat pack. You just follow the instructions carefully. Now, I'm not going to quote the number anymore, but you can still use Skype, and you can use Freedom Screen here, but there's a new format. As you know, Revolution Radio has moved. It's to a new site, which is fantastic, I think. And it's revolution.radio, revolution.radio. That's where you need to go. There's a chat room, and everything is there. Now, Dave, just before the break, you you just got your point in. Excellent, well done. That was good. But yeah, look. Before we go into the meat of the show, what was your intent and purpose when you set out on the path of the radio?
Yeah, well, like you, Mackie, I started when I was around maybe 8, likewise, and I had my own little project Blue Book, and I was interviewing my friends and taking down like their deposition of what was it they saw. I didn't know MUFON existed or anything like that, but I was doing my own little investigation. And I would document the whole thing and sketch it. It was pretty cool. I liked it. My mother was a medium, and she used to do things that I didn't think or believe in at all. So I was, by the time she was heavily into that, I was doing physics at school, and I couldn't see how those two things were. I knew mine were real because I was doing relativity. That's real. There's an equation. It's repeatable, and all those things you mentioned earlier. But I couldn't, although I was given some tremendous examples in my own life, though, tremendous examples from my mother and her, let's call it powers or gift. That she was a special human being. And she was able to tell me things that were going to happen, and they happened. She could see the future, and then I learnt that I could do a similar thing. Then my belief for her work took a new turn, and I was no longer negative, but I'd already left school, and that influence of science on my life changed. But I was always, and while my own experiences were occurring, I was looking for answers, and I found none. But all I could do is investigate, and I investigated more here and there. My mother had the Van Daniken books at home, Chariots of the Gods, and all those, the ones that he had written up until then. She was a big fan. We never really discussed ancient civilizations and high technology. The mysteries of the pyramids, I think, was the biggest one that my mum focused on, which of course before she passed away, she never really got the answers she was looking for. And I think I don't want that to happen. My drive here is that I don't want that to happen. I want to know. I want to find out. But as you know, Mickey, in that discovery, in this field, you can't take anything in isolation. So that's just right. Focusing on the pyramids will lead you down a single path to an outcome that has no real answer. There's lots more questions, like its true age. And I'm not putting the Egyptians down when I say this, but you claim you built them. Build another one. Go on, I dare you. Because you can't. Because you didn't build them. That's what I'm saying. So, like the Jupiter Temple, which I only learned about after we started this show. Meki knew about it before then. So the stones were so massive that the Romans couldn't cart around something a tenth the size of those stones, let alone cart one of those around, proving that they didn't build the Jupiter Temple foundation. Those are the things that have now led me down an ever-broadening path. The path is so broad, it's 360 degrees, and now I'm in the middle of it. Yeah, it surrounds me, Meki. It's everywhere. It's in every direction. There's something to look at. In every direction, there's something to know about. And the thing that I liked the most was how quantum physics changed everything. Because I was the model physics student who understood the mechanics of the universe with relativity. It made sense. Everything made sense. Not so anymore. Now, I try to apply quantum physics to anything and it doesn't make sense. Watching it changes the outcome. Watching it makes it occur in such a way that we wanted it to occur, so it makes sense for the viewer. Isn't that extraordinary? But the power of the subatomic world isn't isolated to only the subatomic world. The ability for an object to go through two slots and interfere with itself when it's a single object is something else. And I think we're right on the cusp of getting that, whatever that means, whatever that does to us, it's the next stepping stone. It's like, Meki, like we're around the campfire and we're going, ugh, that's the extent of our vocab, right?
That's right.
And we look up and see stars. We don't know what they are. They're lights. We don't know what they do. But we see them every night. And that was the next step of our evolution. Was to plot them, to make sense of it. So this thing that we've got in front of us now with quantum physics is certainly something else. And it's going to change the way we think about things. And I think it's the secret to the mystery. I think it's the secret to the space we inhabit. And I think once we work this out, that we'll find out there's much more than meets the eye. i.e. more dimensions. We will discover more of them. And we'll discover a place that isn't in any of the dimensions. And I think Star Trek called it subspace. It's a place you can actually go, but there isn't really anything there. It's not the place, it's a place that connects all the dimensions together. It's sort of the interdimensional space. But it's theoretically where and how quantum entanglement is able to communicate with the other particle.
Well, yes, correct. Because there would be no distance or time in there, right?
There is no distance and time in the interdimensional space, absolutely. So, I've been speaking a lot at the UFO conventions, and now, thankfully, and thanks, Joanna, for inviting me along. One of the things that I'm seeing people are more interested in now is not only what's flying around in the sky, but what does it mean to me? This inward-facing perspective that people are beginning to exhibit is, I think, a very special turning point. That we've accepted, the most of us in these groups have accepted all this stuff exists. So what does it actually mean? So reverse engineering stuff and the tech that we're taking places, and how does this change where we're at? And the big question that joins all this together is there must be someone knowing what's going on. And who is that? Is that the government in any way, shape or form? Is that how that is? Do they completely know, or is it above the government? That's the other thing that we have to consider. And so, with all the people we've interviewed and all the people in our discovery, in our journey of discovery here, and we hope that we're pulling you along, because we want you to come with us. And in our discovery, there is so much that needs to get joined together. Lloyd Pye mentioned that a lot, that there is UFO people and hominids never wanted to talk to each other about things, but there was a thing going on between the two of them. There was sightings in amongst the same time period at the same location of hominid sightings and UFO sightings. Does that really mean that maybe the Bigfoot that we know is a spacefaring race like Chewbacca? Who knows? Is it like a predator? Are we on a planet where they can just hunt us down? Maybe they win tickets once a year and come and hunt us down. You know, does that? If you can imagine it, it's probably already been done. Ben Rich, right? Ben Rich said that. We can take ET home. All these different things. So that's where I'm at. I wanted this radio show initially. I'll be honest. I thought we'd have about a year's worth of material, and that would be the end of it. We'd talk a little bit and we'd have some fun. But it's more than that. It's gone so far now in the research that we've been able to discover probably 10 to 30 times more of the information is connected than I'd ever personally expected on the onset. Another, say, 40% of the information I never knew at all. And leaving only about 30% of the stuff I really understood. Goodness me, Mackie.
Jeez.
What is that? I can't get on the website, by the way.
Oh, okay. No, I'm on there, yeah.
Yeah, I can't. I don't know what's going on. So, just like the hunt around the planet for things that were undertaken by the Third Reich before pre-World War II, I'm sure that they discovered the same things we discovered, Mackie. I'm sure they were across it and much more.
I think so.
I'm sure that the powers that be know all of this stuff that's going on completely and utterly, 100%. And they've known it for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think we're at a point where maybe it's being withheld even more. I think they're holding it more tightly to their chest. I think more and more people are learning about this stuff and saying, hey, wait a minute. Why don't we know about this? I mean, why the silence, Mickey? Just for the biggest one, my favorite one, the Sumerian text talking about the Anunnaki. Why is that not a thing? Why don't we learn about that at school? Why don't we learn about the comparison between that and the biblical text, which seemed to be just an exact copy, well, with a whole bunch of stuff redacted, like every time the word Anunnaki appears, it's now God. You know, why didn't that happen? Why was I taught from a history book that was reprinted in the 50s? Why didn't have any new information in it? I want to know why we're not educating the people. I think you already have all the answers for these things. But this is why I'm doing it. This is why I'm in the show. This is why I was lucky enough to get invited on with Mackie and do this Shiny Side Out. You know, we've got bigger things. We've got bigger ideas than we currently have. And we're just trying to find those answers, and then we'll bring them to you. So far, we're at where we're at. And I swear, Mackie, I was listening to show 100, and we didn't know half of what we know now. Isn't it extraordinary?
It is. I mean, but again, and like I said last week, I think it was, it's all about having focus. So yes, it is what you're interested in, and it's what you do all day. But you still have to, live your life and do the things that you do. You waste a lot of time doing things. You waste a lot of time. But when you've got a focal point like this show, then you sit down and you dig deeper and you bring more information to light than you would normally do, right? Because you probably, in our normal lives, we just skim the surface and go, okay, this is interesting, but I really don't have time to get into it. Whereas with this, it's furnishing us with an excuse. Well, I have the show, so I better look more into it. Right? I make the time. So it's actually great to have this show as the focal point. And like I said, 300 shows, 187 documents, 4,000 or 5,000 pages of research in the last 6 years, which is it's a great base to now go ahead, right? It's fantastic. But let's look over the past 299 odd shows. We have addressed a lot of completely or seemingly divergent subjects, and we were of course designing the show to draw them all together and find links and common threads. And these are the things that we actually discussed with you. We've discussed more, but these are the highlights. There's ancient high civilization, ancient high tech. Dave?
The gold, specifically the orbitally rearranged monatomic elements, or ORMs as you might know them.
We had immortality, extreme longevity.
UFOs.
Dating methods, because it's important to understand how the science actually works.
Yeah, completely. And when I found out there was different methods of dating something that might have been extracted from the ground, and then all the problems that each one of those, that was a great show, Mickey, I have to say. That the problems with dating was actually something, it's a thing. And you should, if you're not sure about that, refer back to our show. The Yeti, Alma, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, the Yowie, the Hairy Man. We did a number of shows on that.
Yeah, then of course we expanded into cryptozoology. Big cats, dogs, black dogs usually, and you have the monsters, the river monsters, the ocean monsters. There be dragons, and so on and so forth.
The Kraken, Mickey, the Kraken.
Kraken, yeah, that's right.
We actually discovered that some of those things are real. That's the thing. Australopithecus, Mickey, is the giant squid. Giant squid.
Yep,
it's
right.
real. It's a real thing.
Yeah. It's a thing. It's a thing.
It is. It's a thing. Dimensional shift phenomena. The Voynich manuscript, the Abydos temple, the lintel above the doorway there that has the helicopter and the offshore powerboat. You should check that out. They're real photos. They're not doctored, but the excuses for a helicopter being there is laughable. Oh, it's a combination of two different drawings, and the plaster fell away. Well, no, the plaster didn't fall away. There's sections of the same wall where the plaster fell away, and that's different. This is the exact drawing of a Black Hawk silhouette. Oh my goodness, right?
That's right.
And also the man from Torrid. There's so many other examples.
Oh, look, there was a lot. And then the Moon Mysteries. I mean, we spend a lot of time on the moon. Jose Escamilla made 2 brilliant documentaries about the Moon Mysteries. And in fact, he analyzed all the pictures from the moon missions as they were released. And he downloaded them all. And if you haven't seen any of his work, I urge you to look at it. It is fantastic.
NASA even accused him of knowing too much about it.
I know.
As you know, it was in color, they said.
Yeah. No, it was like, if you haven't had the chance to look at it, please do. Jose Escamilla, look at his work. I urge you.
Of course, that leads us to potential NASA cover-ups. And
Yeah.
you know, I'll say one thing to this point. The EVAs are downloadable for all the moon missions. You can examine them. They're down to the time in minutes. On this minute you'll be doing that, and this minute you'll be doing this thing. And an EVA is an extravehicular activity, which means they leave the LEM or they leave the orbiter or whatever it is they're doing, only to come back in. Now those dates didn't match. Everything that I've been able to find, and some things, the photos didn't match, and they keep saying, oh, you know, we lost the moon rock, or we lost the footage of the moon landing, lost it, don't know where it is. You know, only the world's most important ever thing that ever happened ever lost it. It's gone. Sorry,
it happens.
In an archive box, just forgot, you know, destroyed it.
which you know leads nicely into other vanished things, like vanished people, and there are a lot of missing people. We spent a lot of time on it, and then we found a link to missing people in the parks. Specific,
David,
yeah,
411.
Yeah, absolutely. Specifically in American, but not just American parks or wildlife reserves, everywhere else. And that, of course, then led us to look at the increased Yeti and Bigfoot activity in those areas as well. So there are links to all of these things. And then, of course, the penultimate, Dave, be careful how you say this one.
Yeah. So I think we've already been demonetized for this episode anyway, so it's not really going to matter anymore. But we all know which date in September it was. The 11th, and false flag or black flag, that's the other one they call it, black flag, false flag operations. Now, the ones that have been admitted by the government was the Bay of Tonkin. That's been admitted that they did that intentionally. And once you have an admission, you can look through the history and find the other ones. We know that World War II was also started on a false flag. Wasn't that the radio station, Becky?
That's correct. Well, it's actually the post office.
Was it a post office?
Yeah, they said that the border, the Poles were attacking the post office.
Oh.
But it was broadcast. But yeah, so look.
It's very difficult because you know that the transcripts of all YouTube clips now, and when we put this in the archive, there's just no way of being able to get out of this. Now, I was actually making a point last night to my friends saying the control of who gets paid what for what is now becoming a thing. So when a news organization, one of the big four on the planet that owns almost all of them, when they're allowed to and get monetization for their discussion on a topic, but no one else is allowed to talk about it, that's the control of an idea. It is. They don't mind you talking about it. If you talk about it too much, they'll take your site offline. But to not be monetized, you know, to have no monetary benefit talking about something, Mackie, we could actually do this in an experiment. We could transcript their show and say exactly the same words and see what happens.
Yeah.
And then we can use theirs as a precedent. Go, look, we just did an experiment. You won't monetize it. That their one's monetized, ours isn't.
Yeah.
I don't mind taking you to court. Let's see what happens. Are you going to monetize it? Right? So, Mackie, I've got deja vu right now.
And we spent a lot of time. I like that. No, and we spent a lot of time looking at that phenomenon as well, because everybody has experienced it. And now there are many explanations as to what that is. Like it's a prefrontal, or temporally delayed cognition. It's some delay in your brain where you remember something, but it comes through as a memory of the future. Things like that. Now, in truth, I think there are a number of different things that people experience as deja vu. I think. And I can only speak for myself here. The one time that I experienced it the strongest was when I went against it. And I've told the story a number of times now. It was a completely innocuous event. It was completely irrelevant. It was not earth-shattering. I was in the kitchen in Germany, in my old home. And I was meant to. I think I was meant to pick up a plate and put it in the cupboard or something like that, right? That was my deja vu. Oh, I dreamt this. I remember it, right? And then I didn't. I didn't do what my deja vu told me I should be doing. And it was a very interesting, jarring feeling. I can't fully describe it, but it felt like I had jumped tracks when I didn't do what my deja vu told me I should do. If you get a deja vu of your own, act differently. See what happens.
Oh, I can blame you now, Mackie. That was the timeline shift.
Clearly, it's all my fault.
Yeah,
it's all my fault.
but this is the thing, that people who experience deja vu experience not just the sensation of knowing what's happening or about to happen, but there is a feeling that is associated with their description of the event. They have a heightened awareness. There is a peculiar feeling that you don't get day to day, or you never get it unless it's deja vu. It's like you're connected to a time tunnel. There's all these different things that people are describing or attempting to describe, because it's like the flatland that you've read, and they're trying to describe something they don't have words for. Normally, people go with it. They do it because they're just, oh, that was what I saw, and I know what I'm supposed to do next. And that's a new word, supposed. They know what they're supposed to do next, and they do that action, and it all seems to just dissipate. In Mackie's great example, where he wants to know what... you're a rebel, Mackie, because you didn't do it, right?
I didn't do it.
No, but I'm not criticizing you for it. I'm saying, what a tremendous experiment. He saw what was supposed to happen, he dreamt it, and he went, you know what, I'm not doing that. I'm in control of my own life, thank you, universe. Right? And then he said he felt like the jarring effect, like it was the divergence of two timelines. You've gone off in another direction there. Yeah,
clearly. And since then I've noticed things that are different. This is not a deja vu, this is actually a dimensional shift phenomena, where, and this is a completely I'll give you two small examples for them. One is the size of a Chinese rice ball, which is like a little sweet thing. It's a rice flour with a filling of peanuts or black bean or whatever, right? And you can buy it. Oh no, it's quite tasty. But I remember them to be the size of half the size, I'd say. Oh no, yeah, a little bit. So I'd say 3/4 the size of a golf ball, right? Whereas my brother remembers them to be substantially larger, so maybe 1.5 times the size of a golf ball.
Wow.
And lo and behold, what's in the shops today, where we find that is 1.5 times the size of a golf ball. So here, in this universe, he's right, but I swear that I know they were much smaller at one point. But that was one. Again, I mean, who cares, right? And that's why I'm saying that the Mandela effect and all these other things, I mean, it's really completely unimportant stuff. It doesn't matter, and that's why I think that there's something to it. There is something to it, because in the world, not just the big things change. Like, Hitler. In my timeline, Hitler was a painter. Oh wow, amazing. In my timeline, these Chinese desserts were bigger than here. That's the stuff I expect, right? Another one was the path of stones. I remembered going off to the left, but my brother and everybody else saying no, it always went straight, and my wife tells me it went left as well. So she's with me on that one, whereas everybody else says not. It's always been straight. So these are just small examples, and look, of course we could misremember it. that was truly
that's true. Yeah.
very cool thing. But yeah, look, I can't explain it. Go ahead.
Well, ghosts is the other one, a very important one.
Yes.
And you know what, I have to say that the ghost component and religion and multi-dimensions all seem to go together. This is the thing where if you're only looking at ghosts, you have a very limited range of being able to explain any of it. If you're only looking at religion, then that doesn't really count for ghosts, right? Multi-dimensions, yeah, that seems to make that go together. However, in religion, it's about dying and going to a waiting place so that you can come back. And as I'll let you go with reincarnation in a second. But the ghost thing is where you're stuck and you don't leave yet. And you're hanging around. Or it's a multi-dimensional thing where someone who has already passed isn't stuck, but they come to visit. Like, if you don't know this about video games, there's some video games where you can just go in as an observer into the game, and you can interact with no one, but you can be there and watch it all happen.
Yeah. I
know that I can drive my car in someone else's race in the Pro League in iRacing, as a plug, but I'm not, they can't see me at all, but I still drive like I'm driving with them. Yeah. So maybe the ghost thing is where they're, maybe this is a video game, maybe this is this place we're on right now, maybe it is the Matrix, maybe you can go visit afterwards. Maybe someone's, hacked the code and go, oh, I want to have a bit more presence. Maybe if I can ramp it up to 5%, 10% presence allocation in the, the ini file. Becky knows what I'm talking about. So when I load it, I've got a substantial presence there, not zero. So that's the thing. I know that I've seen ghosts. I know my mother saw ghosts. I know what I saw and felt to be a real thing. It had a presence in this in this reality that we're in, and that's really tough for me to say that they can't exist or they don't exist. And I'm trying to push some things together to make them fit. Sometimes, Becky, this does feel like you're doing like a 1,000,000-piece jigsaw puzzle, but all the jigsaw puzzle pieces are different sizes, not just all the same size cut. It's right. Very, very hard. So, Becky, what's the next one?
And they're 10-sided puzzle pieces.
Oh, 10-sided, yeah. Dodecahedron.
Which all of this led us then into sort of not a tailspin, but into a large number of shows around the spiritual, more or less. And I'm going to group them very quickly together. We discussed the mind-body problem, reincarnation, ESP, remote viewing, dreams, and even the quantum mind and biocentrism. So all of these things I just mentioned, they are what we consider completely necessary to investigate, to understand the overall picture of the world we live in. If we completely disregard them, we will never, ever, ever, ever get the answer. And there's the mind-body problem, how we separated the science from the spiritual, right? Reincarnation, my goodness, the evidence is staggering for reincarnation. ESP, you're an experiencer of that yourself, right? Dreams, we discussed dreams, and then why do we have to sleep? I mean, there's now stacks of research on why you would die when you don't sleep and dream. I mean, it's astounding, and then eventually we came to the quantum mind and biocentrism, and then I'll let you talk about the next. I think we should take the next 3 points probably together as well, because that leads directly into that as well. Because I mean, what is the nature of reality after all? Right? I mean, what is real, and what is the smallest unit of existence that we can think of, or the smallest unit of reality that we can think of? At what point do we stop being ourselves, for example, as a human being? We discussed this. I chop off my legs, my arms, and so forth. So until only the head is left. So does that mean then my brain is the smallest unit of existence? Well, I don't know. but that brought us into the next sphere of endeavor as well. But Dave, look, if we didn't do the spiritual components, I think we could not complete our research.
Absolutely. What you were saying then, the holographic universe, the electric universe, and the universe as a simulation. An extraordinary vision comes to mind when you start to think about, well, maybe this is a holograph. Maybe this isn't real. Maybe it's like a video game. Maybe all these different things. Now, when you hear physicists saying there's 11 dimensions, where are they?
That's right.
But where are they? And the quantum world opened up another one, a dimension where it's joining all the dimensions together, which would obviously that would have to be. So what makes this worse is, okay, so if it is a hologram or a holograph or a holographic universe, if none of this is real at all, then if the whole thing's like a computer program, like a game or a simulation, because that takes the game play out of it, because it makes it real. In a simulation, it's all designed to be physics real, outcome real, and it's done for a purpose. So that means there's research results, and would have gone in with an idea about how it was going to behave, and then you would have a hypothesis and then an outcome. Those things can only be sought after by a whole nother bunch of people who aren't in it. You can't turn the game on from the inside. So it has to be done from the outside. And if it's done from the outside, that means there's a whole nother place. There, I'm counting up to 13 now. So there's a whole nother place. Now, I know that we've been creating life inside the computer and randomizing generations of things and putting them through tests to work out how an object might evolve, how it might evolve to counter things, and what's the best course of action for it to take, and how does it then transition from a liquid environment to a solid gravity environment. I've seen those things happen. I've seen that evolution of computer-powered generation of environments with real physics in it. The Matrix was a great film, and it allowed us to be able to get an insight to maybe why all this thing is, why we see what we see, why so many things taste like chicken. I love that example. Why Uri Geller can bend spoons, because there is no spoon. Yeah? The concept of that movie, conceptually, I think it was perfect. I think it did everything it needed to do. Not 2 and 3, they had their own things.
The quest to make more money!
Well, yeah, but I think we learned something, that there was a problem inherent in the system, and that is choice, as we hear in the bumper on the station. Just remind everyone while we're here, revolution.radio is the new website. You need to go there. It's so much better. Hawk and the team did a great job of putting that together. So I want you to go there and sign in and get yourself into the chat room and use it and give us some feedback. It's an awesome website. It's an awesome platform. Thank you, Nighthawk. It is Revolution Radio. So, Mickey, the tough part of accepting whether this is a holographic universe or the whole thing is a simulation was posed just recently in a paper where they'd asked people, would you voluntarily go into a simulation that you could never come out of? And they said, some said, yeah, why not? But there's conditions. So before you lock in your yes, there's conditions. The conditions are that, you won't be able to talk to anyone from the outside world anymore. And, that reduced somewhat the people willing to go into it. But of course you can have everything, and when you go in there, all of your wants are taken care of. You want for nothing. You have everything, want for nothing. And you can be whatever you want. You can have anything you want.
Sounds like a pretty sweet deal.
It is. It sounds like a sweet deal. However, you can't. All the people outside here in the real world, you'll never be able to interact with them again. Now, does that not sound like, Meki, art imitating life?
Oh,
so, the universe is a simulation. Can we talk to the people outside it? Maybe only when they're ghosting us. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's all there is. So I found that this topic amazing. It's a mind blower. Boom, mind blown.
I agree. And look, and after that we went into well, not after, but we talked about dimensional travelers, shifts, anomalies, like we said earlier as well. You know, the Skinwalker Ranch, the bell. We're going to talk about the bell and the Nazi technology cycle following this one, the Mandela effect, which is linked to that again, because the Mandela effect was something I was aware of until probably a few months ago, which is odd because I should be aware of it, but I wasn't. So maybe that's my Mandela effect. Meaning, of course, that a lot of people seem to remember Mandela dying a lot sooner or earlier than he actually died. And the Berenstain versus the Berenstain controversy, was it EI or AI in the spelling? The other things as well, which are interesting. And the answer is, well, I don't know. And who misremembers and who does remember? Which, of course, then is linked to the Hadron Collider. And people say, well, ever since that was switched on, we've seen an increase in the Mandela effect phenomenon. Are we collapsing realities here, Dave? Are we? It doesn't really matter if the universe is real or simulation, or if it's holographic, or if it's electric, or whatever it is, right? Chances are there's more than one. If you look at the multiverse theory, are we collapsing them? Is that what's happening? I mean, is it? I don't know. Our consciousness, is it being thrown into unfamiliar territories before we die? In fact, I don't know. It's a really interesting topic, and it's very easily dismissed by skeptics.
The LHC to me just seems like a preposterously large waste of money. Unless it was in it, like in Contact the movie, where it was embedded in a conversation somewhere, encoded, and it was, you need to build this machine, and when you do, you're going to be able to have a hyperdimensional tunnel or something. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It doesn't seem to me. I mean, I want to talk to those people who funded it, because I've got things I'd like to fund too. Hover cars. I reckon if we spent that much money on the research for that LHC, that we'd all have hover cars right now, right? They're the kind of people who are funding this that know something that we don't know. Because it's not about how small can we collide things together to make something happen. The very people working on it, when it was running into difficulty, their excuse for why it was failing, their official and documented excuse, was that they thought they were coming back in time to tinker with it so that wouldn't happen, so it would never be able to operate. They believed themselves were coming back in time. What? Okay, so it's not a time machine, right? Is that what you're saying? You're saying you're building a time machine, and you're coming back in time to disrupt your turning on the time machine. Meki, when do we want a time machine?
Doesn't matter.
That's right.
People still don't understand why. Because it doesn't. It doesn't. Why? What? It doesn't matter at all. Not at all. Not even.
I think I covered time travel there.
Yes, you did, sir. You did very well as well.
Because once it's invented, it's irrelevant. It's going to always be there. That's the point about time travel.
Absolutely. Look, and we spoke about secret societies, societies that keep secrets, that's the difference. And secrets, because some knowledge is dangerous and some knowledge will get you killed. People used to get killed all the time because they knew something that they shouldn't have, and it still happens. You can deny it if you like, but it's a fact. The Cathars were wiped out because they're heretics. The Gnostics were tried to be wiped out because they're heretics. and the Knights Templar were wiped out because eventually they were also called heretics. Heretics just means you don't believe what I believe, so I'm going to kill you. But they held knowledge that was dangerous at the time and probably still is. Now, put that in perspective. The knowledge that they had was so powerful that for a time, I'm talking about the Knights Templar now, so powerful that for a time they were the most powerful organization in Europe. They were the first bankers. They had complete free reign from the Catholic Church, and they started really poor. I mean, their emblem, their shield, is 2 knights on 1 horse. That's how they were traveling. Okay, they didn't have a horse to each side. Very friendly. They were poor. They were really poor, and they were ostensibly founded to protect the pilgrims on their way to Jerusalem. They came back from Jerusalem after they allegedly found something under the Temple Mount or somewhere else. That knowledge, whatever it was they found, gave them so much power. The Catholic Church gave them complete free reign. Astounding. Never seen anything like that. But a few hundred years later, just like the Cathars, they were then, or allegedly, completely wiped out. There's still a school of thought that believes that quite a few Templars got away, and it goes on and becomes a very interesting subject of study. But these societies, these secret societies and societies with secrets and so forth, they are keepers of ancient law, of ancient knowledge. They're keepers of things that we absolutely need to know and remember, as it were. These are things. Yes.
Before we leave this topic, just throw it back to me for a sec.
Sure.
No, keep going. Keep rolling.
Oh, all right. Sorry. No. But their purpose is to keep that knowledge for us. It's crucial that this knowledge is still there in 1,000 years, right? Because some of this knowledge is about survival. It's about our survival. And it's very clear that we are in dire need of this knowledge. Otherwise, we can't get out of here, right? That's what they're doing. They're keeping that knowledge for us.
Well, the reason why I want you to throw it to me was because Fifth Element, the movie.
Mm-hmm.
You can probably tell that I like movies, and I think that movies do something where they're giving us some information, usually, in a surreptitious way, and we can begin to accept that in some way, shape or form, rather than it being a textbook or the government making an announcement. The government's unlikely to make an announcement saying, did you know that the Cathars or the Knights Templar knew something? They're not going to tell us that. However, it's so much easier to put it in a movie like Fifth Element, where the robed religious guys, the priests, had a key around his neck, and he didn't know why he had the key, except that it was in the book that he'd learnt, and he was the keeper of the key in the book. And when the event happened, he went to action. That was his thing. He had the key. He had to put the key in, had to read the instructions. Never done it before, never rehearsed it, but the book said, okay, you take this thing, which sort of, I don't know, looks like a little tiny scepter, you put it between the rocks there, and the door opens. Oh, awesome. What next? So, while the translation of these things may not be entirely accurate, at least the documentation is there. That's what I think about the way it's been told to us, about the way it's announced to us. If UFOs weren't real, if there was no such thing about them at all, right? There would have been no movies about them. If aliens didn't exist, there'd be no movies about them at all. Because why would you even bother?
That's right.
There wouldn't be any money in it if no one believes it was even possible. So I think that this conditioning that we're all going through it's just another form of advertising, and it advertises their intentions in advance. And we hear that a lot from all of our sources, saying that they don't tell you outright, but they'll put it there's a secret thing here, and you will look at that thing there, and I'll show you how they fit together. And go, wow, that's pretty convincing. So, Mackie, magic.
See, that's where most people get off the boat, right? And
I
look,
thought it was the alien lizard overlords, but that's right.
That still has more credibility, I think. No, and it's I understand why. I get it. I really understand why that is. But and this is the yardstick I've taken in my research. And I'll share it with you guys. Whatever the most automatically neglected subject is, that's the one I want to focus on. And there are two came out on top of everything else. Two things, two concepts, two words even. Magic is one and love is the other. So whenever you mention these in the context of research, or the fate of the human race or whatever, or in any context for that matter, people either smirk in the case of love, or they think you're completely insane if you actually insist that you're not talking about stage magic. You're talking about the actual magic that you read about in storybooks, where you can transmute matter to some extent, where you shapeshift, where you have abilities that are completely unbelievable, conferred by magic. So, why do I waste my time with that, you would ask? Because I believe that magic, just like electricity, and I'm getting hate for this, is just another force of nature, which today is poorly understood, in fact completely forgotten in most cases, and in fact encouraged to be forgotten by the elite who are using it. So magic practitioners are still abound, and if you talk to anybody that is into magic, actual magic, right, you will find different kinds of magic, and they're dangerous, and they're powerful depending on what it is that you're looking for. And it's a real thing, this magic, and I don't care that if you believe it or not. It is something that still exists in our world, and it is just something we don't use. I mean, if you look at lightning, for example, how could you use that to light a room, or start a car, or anything, right? How do you harness lightning? Magic is the same, because the power is there, and the funny thing is this: the ley lines that are all pervasive all over the world, I believe, were used, at least in part, to harness this particular energy or power or force or whatever you want to call it. I don't know, right? And some of the magic that is transmitted to us throughout the ages is just very advanced technology, which we've lost today. So yes, there's real magic, I believe, actual magic, people walking through walls type magic. And there's magic which is just disguised highly advanced technology. And then, of course, there's stage magic. Do you find it very often? No, you don't. Of course you don't. And a lot of it is tricks, right, and illusions. That's fair enough. But I do believe very strongly that magic is still with us, and it's a real thing. And it's a power that you need to be very careful in wielding. Right? There's a law of 7, meaning that usually with magic, anything you do to someone comes back to you 7-fold, good or bad, right? And very simple practitioners of magic, like people that read runes or do the tarot, like I used to do, they know that. So we are very careful when we do this. None of the power is ours. The power is conferred to us by the people we do the reading for. That's a very mild application of magic. There's another thing that's closely linked to magic, which is astrology. We know that the moon affects the tides on this planet. We know this. And we know that the sun is the ultimate life-giving force in our solar system, and without the sun we wouldn't exist. But we have got a really hard time accepting that the other heavenly bodies, as they're called, could at all influence our lives. I wonder why that is. Because the radiation is real, the gravity is real, they move each other, they influence each other's movements. Why on earth would you believe that none of the other objects in the sky have any influence on you? Of course they do, in very subtle ways, yes, but absolutely, because we are part of a complete, total whole. We are not apart from nature, we are right in it. And to deny any connectivity to anything else, we're just lying to ourselves. It's a complete fallacy. There you go.
Oh, okay, cool. So, remember, so you could call them different coloured magic. So there could be white magic,
sure.
good magic, or black magic, which could be used for the wrong intentions.
Yeah, but magic doesn't care, like electricity doesn't care how you use it.
It doesn't care, no. And there's no electron revolt.
Nope, that's right.
Revolt. Do you like that? You've got the word volt in it. But, yeah, I completely agree, 100%. And look, I've seen some things too, Becky, and I've seen some outcomes come just purely because people were thinking about them.
Mm-hmm.
And remember that magic can be described as something that's a technology that's foreign to you.
Mm-hmm.
That's another way of describing magic. And certainly the some of those cargo cults didn't understand what we had, and they considered it magic. Like if we took like an iPhone or an Android phone, a big screen phone, back in time, 50 years, that'd freak people out. Freak them out like chimpanzees looking at themselves in a mirror. They'd be examining the device, go, what? That's impossible. Yeah. I can't believe that's the end of the show.
No. You're kidding. All right, guys, look, we haven't even scratched the surface. Come back next week if you can.
Take care and stay tuned for a roundtable with Jer Bear. And don't forget to get to the new website, revolution.radio. See you there.